Shh. Yes. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Now we got this going. The Zoom is going. We're going to begin with a video. This is from a hostage, a freed hostage. This was before her boyfriend was free, who was also there in Gaza. Eventually, he was freed. Shh. Just a short clip, which I think is very relevant to this course, not specifically to this class, but to because the main goal of the statement is to take you alive. And in Gaza for 12 days, yes, 1 month in house, 1 month in tunnels, but I felt miracles, and I think that's one of the biggest miracles in that I understood that I'm supposed to be enslaved. I was with another hostage, a young girl, 16 years old. I met her on the first day. And when I saw her, she was terrified and she was crying. And when I saw her, I just said to myself that I don't need more than it. When I decided to take this responsibility, I felt so powerful that I could take every bad moment and make it a funny moment. And I remember that one time she told me, Safira, I'm very hungry. And they don't want to give this food. What would you do? So conflict now in the picture, and you need to be my girl. I saw them room with all the bread and I'm saying, oh my God, I go there, I take the pizza, put it under the clothes, we go to this room, we in the door car, just lose phone and hide the food. So she say, okay, you know what, I want to be older. So we go, I take all the pizza, when I to the room, we eat quickly, and then go with Sam and say, what's he doing here? And behind the food, and I do like stretch, and she with all her mouth full because she wants to laugh, and I say, no, you can't, you can't.
Rated 67. Here is her number one secret. Regular milk or oat milk?
Regular, but only casein A2.
Cashews or almonds? Almond, peel. Cashews actually contain toxins. Kiwi or banana?
So that no shade. It was very way and every time it and after that, I remember a few days after they told us, now we go to and girl, she said, Sapira, I don't go to the tunnel. And I say, we are in God, and we have to see the attraction number one with this. And she says, Sapira, you are ready to feel, but I need to feel it. And yes, one day, one of the theories going a movie on Tinder and he wrote my name. And I was very angry because I had conflict and I cried out. And I say, why? Why you listen? And he said, I hate you. You're my enemy and I hate you. But when you are good, like 90, that was I could do the whole interview. You could, talk. You could listen to it online. Maybe one day we'll bring her to speak. She's
very moving. As many of the other hostages, they have incredible stories, and a Sapir Cone. Anyway, as you can see, the main point I wanted to bring out from there was the idea of how she talks about that she felt that she had a purpose and she had a reason to be there at that time, and thinking about, the worst place that anyone could ever dream of being. And here she was in these hell tunnels, and she said to herself that, I have a purpose and there's a reason that I'm here. So now we're going to take this in a bit of a different direction. And today we're going to the time, meaning in the rhythm of time. So some of you have a thing about birthday practices. If you don't have it, don't worry, because it's in your book as well. And I have a few more copies here too. There's an old saying that your birthday is the day that God said that I need you here. A birthday is not just a commemoration. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And that's what this paper is about. But the truth is that time is something that people put on their Thanksgiving turkeys, and it's also something that we keep looking at. Okay, some of you got that. The Torah doesn't only ask us to do good things, but the Torah tells us to do it in the right time. Shabbos is not just a convenient moment of rest, but it has a specific time. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, which we have coming up. We're going to look at each of these days, each of these moments in time. And Torah tells us that we're here to tap into a spiritual energy and recognize that today is not the same meaning as yesterday. There is a rhythm, there's a pulse, there is a spiritual current that runs through the Jewish calendar. For those that play music, know that there's some beats that you go, and then sometimes you gotta play a higher beat, you gotta play a lower beat. Then there's some of just the bass regular. But the same thing is with time. We have certain days that seem to be simple, although we'll see that's also not true. And then each day has their purpose when they gain depth, texture, and vitality. In other words, Judaism is not only teaching us what to do, but it's also telling us when to do it. When isn't arbitrary. It isn't just commemorating an anniversary of something that happened. The day itself holds something important. We're participating, we're drawing meaning from that which already is here and connecting to a special energy in this time. Sometimes we feel like we're doing the exact same thing. We're reading the same prayers, we're reading the same book, we're doing the same thing day in, day out. Sometimes it may be a holiday. We feel like we're pulling out the same Hanukkah decorations from a year ago. Some of you have beautiful Hanukkah decorations. It's maybe a personal milestone. But what if the fact that we're doing it again and again actually has real meaning to it, and something that is deeply spiritual in what's going on? And that's what we're going to explore in this lesson. Jewish tradition is not just a container of something that's empty, but everything that happens is living, a breathing force that shapes our experience of meaning every day. And when we are in sync with time, we're in sync with what's actually happening in life. When you fall out of sync, then perhaps the most well-intentioned actions can fall dull. Jewish life is shaped by both daily practices and occasional observances. There are daily mitzvahs that we do. We wake up every morning, we say, Modani, thank you, God, for giving me another day. We say daily blessings, daily prayers. We pray 3 times a day. Then when it comes once a month for Chodesh, we add a 4th prayer called Musaf. On Shabbos, we add a Musaf prayer. On holidays, we add prayers. We do different traditions and different things. On Shabbos, we have our challahs and our chicken soup. And when it comes Passover, we have our matzah, etc., etc. But what we're going to explore today is that the 2 layers of Jewish life are not separate. It's not that there's one thing and then another thing. Rather, the flow of sacred time actually influences both. Both the routines that we do regularly, as well as what happens in the calendar that's constantly shifting. That is why, some people think the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar. But the truth is that's not completely true. We do follow the month. Every month we bless the new month. But we also follow the sun, the solar, which is the seasons. The month, every month, the moon waxes and wanes, becomes bigger and smaller. And yet the sun is the same for 365 days a year, although it may be a different place in the sky, but essentially the size, etc., is the same. But what changes is the seasons. And different times of year will have a different effect on things that happen in life. Now, the Torah tells us that Passover, as well as holidays, have to be in the right season. Which is why sometimes we have to have a leap year, because if you count 354 days, which is the amount of days that you'll have when you'll count the lunar calendar, which is either 29 or 30 days, 29 and a half days technically, you'll only get 254 days, whereas the solar calendar is 365. So if you keep going only by the lunar calendar, which like some other religions, like the Islam goes that way, and sometimes the Ramadan could be in middle of winter and sometimes in the summer. But in Judaism, so we may be a few days off. Last year Hanukkah fell on the 25th of December. This year it's the 5th, the 14th. In a year from now, maybe a little bit earlier, the 6th or 7th, but eventually we're going to add a month and it's going to go back. So we move back and forth, but it's always going to be around the same time. It's always going to be around December time. Passover is always going to be around April time, because we're constantly catching up, because we follow both the solar and the lunar. And the message there is that there are things that are constantly changing and things that are the same. And yet they have a very intrinsic connection between them if we look at the depths of what's going on. So let's try and explain this a little bit. Take a look in your book, exercise number 4.1a, in page number 80. I'm sorry, page number 100. Not 8, 100. Imagine you are walking with a child in Massachusetts and you come across a sign that reads Plymouth Rock landing place from 1620. The child turns to you and asks, why did the Mayflower land here of all places? What would you say? Very relevant to Thanksgiving holiday we just had. So what would you say? Wouldn't say anything. Anybody ever visited the Plymouth Rock? Oh, we got one hand up. Okay. You did? Okay, I've never been there. You would say this is the Mayflower, right? This is where it is. This is where it all happened. This is where our country began, as you will. Number two, let's continue on. Now imagine you're walking with the same child in California and come upon a sign that says, welcome to historic Mount Wilson Observatory. This time, what the child asks, why did they build the observatory here? How would you answer? Again, what's the question? Why did they build the observatory here?
Good math. Is it good?
There's a good location for observing. Yeah, very interesting. Now you told me the largest ever attended club was the observatory, right? Observatory club. That was very interesting. So you go. Anybody ever been there, Mount Wilson? I've never been there. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. They have a planetarium that's of some sort also there. I don't know. I mean, sure, there's some others. Anyway, now what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? So Plymouth Rock has American history. It marks the location where the Pilgrims landed. The earliest British colonies in the New World came, and they stepped here and they arrived. Now, is there anything unique about the rock itself? No. It just happens to be where they came. As a matter of fact, they had not actually even wanted, they didn't even plan to come to that rock. They wanted to end up in Virginia, and circumstances diverted their course and they ended up there. So this is telling you that something happened here that essentially could have happened anywhere else, but it happened here. Look, Gesundheit. Okay. Now, okay. Everyone's okay? Now Mount Wilson, by contrast, is significant not because of just happens to be something happened, but because it is something by its very definition, it's something significant. Yes, it was used. This is where Edwin Hubble made groundbreaking discoveries in galaxies, beyond our own, and we started learning about things that take place in the in greater realms, etc. But he needed to be in that place. In other words, you can't say, well, I could have just looked up at the sky anywhere. You could, but you're not going to get that same observation from any place. So in other words, there is an intrinsic value to the mountain itself. So some places become meaningful because history happened to unfold there, and others are meaningful because of what they are themselves, because of the quality that makes them naturally suited for a particular kind of greatness. Okay, so just bear with me here, and you'll see what we're getting to. And that's why there's certain things that are in certain places. For example, when I went to visit Canada, took my kids to the Niagara Falls, and they have all those souvenir shops. And so, what do you buy there? You buy maple syrup, because that is something that is unique to Canada. When we went to Alaska, so they're selling all kinds of salmon jerky and things. So that is something that's unique to that place. If you go to Napa Valley, that is where you'll find good wines. In other words, there are certain things that are intrinsic to certain places and for the seasons that they're associated with specifically in those times, and they cannot really be changed. Take a look at exercise 4.1b. Imagine you read in the newspaper that Dr. David Baker had been awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. You also read that Ivy, a Washington, D.C. resident, received a free Metro Rail card and $500 gift card for being the 1 millionth passenger at Dulles Airport. If a child asked you why Dr. Baker got the Nobel Prize, what would you say? And if you asked why Ivy received the prize at the airport, what would you respond? So,
One by chance, one by.
exactly. You're understanding what we're getting at. One was by chance and one was by design. One that the person that happened to be the millionth passenger could have been the millionth at first. It just happened to be there were 999 whatever thousand people before her, so that was her luck at that moment. But the Nobel Prize had to be given to that specific individual. Anyone can't just come and say, "Hey, give me a prize, a Nobel Prize." It doesn't work that way. You have to actually get something to earn it, to deserve it. In other words, there's something specific about that individual, what they contributed as that individual. So now let's take a look at what this has to do with time. So you have a couple things. So you have certain things that are within time, an assigned value to something that took place. So for example, you have the Declaration of Independence was on July 4th, 1776. Christopher Columbus on October 12th, 1492. Martin Luther King was born on January 15th. And the armistice ending of World War II was signed on November 11th. What is associated with these events in history? Well, July 4th would be Independence Day. October would be Columbus Day. Martin Luther King Jr. is on January. And November is Veterans Day. Okay. But if somebody's going to ask, why did these events happen on this particular day? You'll say, it just happened to be that this is what happened. It just happened to be that the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th. Could it have been signed on a different day? Yes. But it wasn't. It was signed on that particular day. Veterans Day could have, the war could have ended on a different day, but it happened to end there. So there's no intrinsic value to the day on its own, but there's something that happened. I took my kids to the fire station here, and the fire trucks all say 9/11/01. Most kids today don't know what that is, so I had to explain to them what 9/11/01 is, and why that's placed on fire trucks. But again, that's a day that happened to be the day that was on 9/11. It also happened to be the day a few days before Rosh Hashanah. Now the same holds true for all secular holidays. The significance doesn't come from the day itself, but we assign it to something and we make that day matter. You could even go and how do we see this? Well, first of all, an example that you could take is like Mother's Day. Okay, Mother's Day is a Sunday of May, and people celebrate their mothers on that day. Doesn't mean that you can't celebrate your mother on a different day. No, but even with this, take a look at how these holidays work. Most of these holidays, okay, some are in the specific day like July 4th, but many of these holidays are either the first Monday or the last Thursday we have for Thanksgiving. Even some of the holidays which are religious holidays, there's a debate as to when those holidays should be. So the point we're getting to here is that when it comes to a secular holiday, they are not intrinsically connected to the day. Rather, they are assigned to a specific day, and that day is given to them. They say that it was Mother's Day, and children woke up their mother early. They came into the room, and they said, "Mom, we have a special surprise for you. You could stay in bed. We'll make breakfast for you." Okay, she's excited. She sleeps another hour. She comes back down, and she says, "Where's the breakfast?" They said, no, we made breakfast instead of you. We made it for ourselves instead of you making it to us. So we go back to the metaphor that we had before. Hubble could not have discovered the galaxy that he discovered if the telescope had been installed in a different place, or even at the base of that very mountain. It had to be on top of that mountain. But the pilgrims could have landed a few miles away. So the same thing is true when it comes to time. There are certain things that are special about time and history, that we're commemorating something that took place. But then there is something that is intrinsic about this particular time. And this is what we're going to learn that is significant when it comes to Jewish times and holidays. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we're talking about the sign value. That you're on the list. What if the Mayflower went to many places and so Plymouth Rock seems to be the best place for us to land our ship? Would that really be instead an intrinsic value as opposed to what would happen?
It's a great question, but it's a what if question. And the reality is there was nothing because, as we said before, they had planned to land somewhere else and they ended up there by accident. Okay, any other questions? I mean, well, we say nothing is by accident, that's true, but nothing that we could point to intrinsically significant, aside for the fact that the New England Patriots had to come many years later there. Yes.
They were from the
They're thrown off course, right? Obviously, God wanted them to land there at that time. But the point over here, we're not giving a class in American history. That's not the point here. Okay, all right. Let's continue on. So now let's take a look at the most the most celebrated Jewish holiday, which is one that comes every day of the week. I'm sorry, every week. Not every day. Every week. Every day is, yeah. And that is Shabbos. So the Talmud says a very interesting, perhaps a cute story. The Roman emperor, page 103, the Roman emperor asked Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, why do dishes of Shabbat produce such an enticing aroma? The answer, we have a special spice, and it's called Shabbat. We place it in the Shabbos dishes, and it gives us a fragrant aroma. Everyone here knows that the cholent that we have here is the best, and you'll know that if you try to taste that cholent on a Tuesday, it's just not going to taste the same. You have to taste it on Shabbos afternoon, after a long davening. You'll finally come in and taste that cholent. Otherwise, it's not going to taste the same. And what the Talmud is telling us, that Shabbos is infused with something intangible, yet deeply real. And Rabbi Yeshua calls this the Shabbos spice. The Shabbos spice is there. You could have the same dishes prepared in any day, but it's not going to be the same. It's the spirit of Shabbos that is infusing this food with something special. And so even the Roman emperor was able to taste that there's something unique about this food. Said, what is it? There's something really, really special about this. I can't really pinpoint to what it is. And Rabbi Yeshua had to say, it's our secret spice called Shabbos. There's a Hasidic story about the great tzaddik Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, known as the Ruzhiner. As a young boy, the Ruzhiner's Malamed, the Ruzhiner's teacher, was teaching a Mishnah, which was about someone that gets lost in the desert and does not know when Shabbos is. And there's different laws. What happens? For example, we read sadly, a girl ends up in a tunnel, right, in a Gaza tunnel. What if they want to know when the Shabbos is? And what if you lose track? So there are halachas, there's laws about that. But the boy was confused. He said, how can it be that someone would not know when Shabbos is? He says, well, maybe he's alone, he's lost, he doesn't have a calendar, he's not sure, he doesn't know what day it is. And so this tzaddik, even as a young boy, says to him, I don't understand. He says, on Shabbos, you look up at the sky and the sky looks different. So you should know what time, you should know what day Shabbos is. Now, he meant this seriously. He was a young boy. Obviously, this was a great tzaddik. This was a very special soul. Not everyone has that, that fine-tuned and heightened sensitivity to be able to connect to things in that way. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev used to say, on Rosh Hashanah, I see that the water in the mine, the mine river, is flowing in a different direction. Everyone says, I never saw that. I don't know what he says. He says, on Rosh Hashanah Eve, I see that. So there are certain things that, people that have this heightened sensitivity, they could tap into what's happening, how it even affects this world. But even us simple people, at least me, we could feel that there's something special about a day like Shabbos, that is different than the other days of the week. So the holiness is not it's not something that we create. We're not saying now we're going to make a day of Shabbos. We're entering into Shabbos. It's Shabbos as it is. This is the way it is. I'm coming into Shabbos. It's a different day. The skeptic might wonder whether is something that simply people project onto the day. Is it something that maybe just because we are trying to make it feel that way, that's why it comes out the way it is? And it's interesting that we see the story that we just read. It's the emperor is telling Rabbi Yeshua, there's something special that you're putting in here. I've tried making that same dish and it doesn't come out the same way. And he's saying, because in other words, even this Roman emperor was able to sense that there's something unique here. And so there's something that is deeply felt, and it's for us to engage with it. But it's not that we are creating it, but there's something objectively spiritual and substantive about that day. A deeper view helps us explain why stories persist, not only in ancient times, but also in modern experience. That there's something that is radiating in that moment. There is a story about which was told by a Soviet Jewish officer, and there was a poet and a poem that was said about it. Now, this is obviously fictional, but it's something that does play out in one way or another, and it's a story of a October evening. He is the soldier in the Navy, the Russian Navy. He's on his ship, and he's something is moving him very deeply and overwhelmed. He steers his ship to port, and this was a song that was written from this poem called "The Captain's Kol Nidre," and it goes like this. Text number 2. He leaves through the streets, hot on the trail. The melody stronger and stronger. What is its message? What is its tale? His heart can hold how much longer? He spots a babushka walking along, crossing street in the middle, and she decipher the mysterious song. Can she solve this great riddle? Grandma, he says, please listen to me. The song in my ear, it's quite bruising. The melody is haunting, it won't let me be. I fear that my mind I am losing. Your face tells me, comes the reply, that you are a Jew, my dear skipper. You're churning, you're burning, I'll tell you why. Tonight is the night of Yom Kippur. So this is a fictionist tale, but the idea plays out in different ways for different individuals. But something automatically lights up in the heart of a Jew saying, it's Yom Kippur. I remember there was a Jew here, and he had since passed. But Nathan, you remember Nathan? And it was the night before Yom Kippur, and it's not exactly a quiet time. A lot of preparations going on for the holiday. This was about, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably about 15 years ago. And he called me, emergency, you have to come over to my house. Okay, I mean, it was Erev Yom Kippur, but okay, if he needs, I went over to his house. And I walk in, there's a few people sitting there. You guys may have been there. And he invited a few people over, and he wants to show me a movie. I don't really have time for this, but he basically showed this movie that was about Yom Kippur. Maybe some of you remember the name of it. About this boy that becomes a cantor, and he sings the Kol Nidre. Anybody familiar with what I'm talking about? It's like the jazz singer. Yes, the jazz singer. They said to watch Kol Nidre, the jazz singer. Anyway, he said that this is tradition. Every year Yom Kippur he watches this movie, The Jazz Singer. Anyway, so something touches the individual different ways. I have people who tell me, I'm sorry, I really have to fly. I have to take a flight to Yom Kippur, but I'm going to be fasting. Okay. So clearly you don't care to be in synagogue, but something tells you, no, at least I have to be fasting. I have to do something. So these type of stories is telling us that there's something intrinsic about the day that's touching the heart and soul of the individual. A Jew that could be completely secular, completely alienated, and yet the holiness of the day exists objectively. In other words, it's embedded within time itself. And this isn't just a spiritual insight, but actually psychology also affirms the power of time that affects us deeply. So, studies show that there are savoring positive experiences when our life's mood changes, when stress eases, and that strengthens our ability to handle challenges that take place. Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz was a Chabad rabbi in California. He recounts a striking conversation with a neuropsychiatric doctor at they're doing a study at UCLA Institute, NPI Institute. And he said that he found this something that he was tracking, and it goes like this. Text number 3. 1 second, let's just make sure the Zoom is still running. Okay, Zoom is on. And he says like this. The doctor told me that the average of 5 people per day experience breakdowns and are brought to the NPI. Few of them are Jewish, but he said, I noticed that every single year around the Jewish holidays, the Jewish admittance goes up dramatically. And on one day each year, admittance spikes closer to 20 people, with 15 of them Jewish. Which day is that, I asked. The doctor said Yom Kippur. And here's the punchline. Each year when admittance to NPI went up on Yom Kippur, it was the Hebrew calendar date, the 10th of Tishrei, not the consistent day on the secular calendar. Jews who were abroad on Yom Kippur didn't even know it was Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur could be sometimes in the 10th of October, or it could be in the 29th of September, right? So it could be different times. So he's saying they didn't even they didn't even follow the Jewish calendar, but there's something that spoke to their heart that said that there's something unique here today. And so there's something that stirs the soul, there's something that awakens the heart on this day of Yom Kippur. Sometimes the soul knows what it's feeling, sometimes it needs some interpretation of those signs, and sometimes tragically it senses something's off and something vital is missing, but it doesn't have the words to frame it. You know, people, the Neuropsychiatric Institute.
Oh,
It's interesting. We was in Publix and they have a Hanukkah display, and almost always you see the Hanukkah display has some beautiful matzahs there in honor of Hanukkah.
yes.
And it's like, don't they understand? But yet it clearly doesn't bother any of the workers in Publix. But yet Jewish people always tell me, why can't they get it right? Don't they know this is it's not the right holiday? It's like something inside them saying, I just want the right holiday to be displayed. I just want to know that the right holiday is there. No, they say there was a guy, we'll call him Harry. He was admitted to the hospital in Tel Aviv. He had a confirmed case of COVID, and he was immediately quarantined. So he's in the hospital, and the doctor tells him, there's not much where we could treat you. We could give you a little medication, but just be ready that now you're going to have a very strict diet called the matzah diet. So the matzah diet says it's not Pesach. He says, well, get ready. Breakfast, lunch, and supper, all that you're going to have is matzah. Says, is it supposed to help COVID? He says, no, but it's the only thing that I could slide under the door. So when we talk about Pesach, let's focus a little bit on Pesach now. Consider Passover. Most people here observe some kind of Seder when it comes Pesach. We drink the 4 cups of wine, we eat matzah and maror, we retell the story of the Exodus. But when we're asked, when did the first Pesach Seder take place? Well, in the traditional sense, you would say that it happened on the 15th day of Nisan, and the Jewish people actually were still in Egypt. That's when the first traditional Passover took place. But the truth is that we find mention of Passover in many generations before that. For example, we see Cain and Abel. The Torah tells us that they were bringing offerings to God. And one Medrash says that it happened on the 15th of Nisan. And that's why one was bringing some grain representing the matzah, and one was bringing the goat representing the Karban Pesach. We find also, and that's why Adam told his sons, on this night, the Jewish people will bring their Pesach offering. We find also that Abraham says that he prepared 3 cakes to serve his guests, who were the angels. And the Talmud tells us, what were these 3 cakes that he prepared? Those were the 3 matzahs that he prepared in order to serve the angels. We see also that Rivka prepared goats when we just read the story of Jacob going to get the blessings from his father Yitzchak, and it says that she prepared 2 goats to feed Yitzchak. Why 2 goats? Because these were for the 2 offerings that are brought on Pesach: the Karban Chagiga, the festive offering, and the Karban Pesach, the Pesach offering. In other words, they were in tune with the time of that moment. Now, you may say it wasn't a traditional Seder the way it is today, but there was clearly the Passover energy that took place, that they were at least tapping into that in a sense that they were able to relate to in that time. So they voluntarily observed those laws, and we're told that that our forefathers observed all the Torah to a certain extent, if possible, and still it remains hard to understand, because even if you want to say that they're tapping into something that's going to take place in the future, but the Exodus essentially doesn't exist yet. So how would you say that they're trying that there's something that's going to take place? Isn't it a little early for this? So the truth of the matter is, when we eat matzah, it reminds us of the haste in which our ancestors left Egypt, and the Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering, recalls how God passed over. Pesach means to pass over the Jewish homes and protect them. But these events didn't yet recur. And so what is the meaning that they were eating matzah and offering a Korban Pesach? And so the answer is that it's not necessarily that they were celebrating Passover because of what happened. They're celebrating Passover because there was an inherent energy of freedom which is connected with this particular time. In other words, we think of it backwards. We think that we celebrate Passover because of the exodus that happened in Egypt on that day. But the truth of the matter is, it's the opposite. The exodus happened on that day because that is a day of freedom, which has inherently a day of freedom. Let's read text 4, page 106. Abraham wasn't celebrating an event in the future. He was tapping into a spiritual energy of freedom that was and always is present in the time of year. The energy of liberation is encoded into the composition of the annual cycle. So the 15th of Nisan is inherently holy and inherently has a energy of freedom associated with that day. And that is why God said, on that day, you are going to leave Egypt. That's also why. So they came into the land of Israel. It was also right before Passover. And the first thing that they did when they entered the land of Israel was they brought the Pesach offering with Joshua. So this reveals something profound. We think of Pesach that's celebrated on the 15th of Nisan because of what happened, because of the history. It's true that happened then, but there's something inherently holy about the holiday of Passover, which is really connected with the day as being a time of freedom. And so this gets back to the point that we said before, that so in other words, in that particular year, 2448, which is the Hebrew year that took place, God revealed himself in Egypt and redeemed them. He just revealed the energy of that day in a very profound way. But the energy essentially existed. And that's why, in a spiritual sense, those who were in tune to it, like Abraham, Isaac, they were in tune to this, and they were able to connect to that day in a certain sense. But we are able to connect to it in the way that we do because of what we see, what happened, but the day itself has that profound energy. Let me just finish this, then we'll take questions. And so that's why, a secular holiday sometimes just moves for convenience, because it's only seen as something that's symbolic. But a Jewish holiday, it's very important that it's done on the date itself. That's why I tell people, you have to eat matzah, even if you're having a Seder before, but the matzah, at least the matzah, the very minimum, has to be eaten at nighttime. And because that is when the mitzvah of matzah could affect with the energy of the day. So if we just pick another day, it doesn't help. So we can't just say, let's do Passover next week because it's a convenient time. People are anyway in town. So we're already doing the Thanksgiving dinner with the family. Let's just do a Seder too, and put it all together. No, it has to be in that specific time, because that is when that spiritual potential comes into existence on that exact day. Questions? Yes.
So are you saying, I'm not sure I'm getting all, saying that with these kinds of holidays, which are different than, a secular holiday, when the government picks a day, that God actually created the spirit of freedom and the people felt that spirit and they knew to rise up at that time?
Well, no, they didn't rise up, because there was a spirit of freedom at time, that's why it ultimately became much more revealed in the story of the Exodus of Egypt. But it was playing into a time that was inherently existent at that time. It just came to revelation. It came out to its peak in that moment.
Yes.
Yes, any other questions? No questions. No questions could either mean everyone gets it or that no one gets it. What's the point? You'll soon see the point. We're getting to the point. I mean, this already is a beautiful point, but there obviously is something very important that we're getting to. Yes.
Intuitively felt that something needed to be done, whatever the upgrade was of that.
Right. What do you mean? What do you mean the people? Which people?
Abraham's.
Yeah, well, we read that the story says that there were three angels there, and he served them those three cakes, which was referring. Well, he's telling them that that this day represents the holiday of Passover, which is a time of freedom, which maybe he said what one day will be brought out in my grandchildren, will be much more expressed. But this is a special day of the Passover freedom on this day.
But it was like passed down through generations, generations.
Right.
The happening was becoming one.
So you're asking a general question, which is, how were things sort of passed, and how do they keep those traditions being in Egypt? So they kept some of it. We know that they kept Shabbos, for example, even though they weren't really commanded to keep Shabbos, but the idea of Shabbos did exist. And there were certain things that they kept that were traditions. And that's why they stood out, because they had certain traditions from their grandparents. But eventually it all sort of came together when God made them a nation and then gave them the Torah at Mount Sinai, etc. Yes, 100%. God's promise to Abraham was the land and the descendants. Yes.
I think basically it was the emperor. They was the favorite.
Right. Well, they had the tribe of Levi, that the Levite, which is why they essentially became the spiritual leaders. They were the ones that they used to teach everyone the importance. They were the ones that really had it passed down to them. Yes. Okay, let's continue on. So let's get back for a moment to to Shabbos. Most frequent recurring sacred Jewish holiday on the calendar is Shabbos. And Shabbos, as we said, has a spiritual energy that's associated with it. So what exactly changes on this day? What exactly is changing on Shabbos that you don't have during the week? And on Shabbos, we talked a little bit about this last week. On Shabbos, the curtain is sort of drawn back, where we see everything that's happening in nature sort of coming to fruition on the day of Shabbos. And everything that exists within this world we find the blessing, God's blessing in that which is expressed in Shabbos. And that's why when it comes Shabbos, we're supposed to enjoy everything that we have, the food that we eat, even the sleeping on Shabbos is a mitzvah, because everything that we have is supposed to be expressed in a way that we are elevating everything that takes place throughout the week. We're elevating that now on the day of Shabbos. So while when it comes during the week, the food that we eat, we have to, use it to work, to serve God properly, to pray, to study. On Shabbos, it has an inherent blessing because everything is elevated. The entire world is elevated, which is why, we have like an extra soul. One of the reasons that we smell spices at the end of Shabbos is because the extra soul that we have on Shabbos, that leaves. And this is a smell is a very spiritual a sense that we have. And so we're able to, that helps reconnect to that lost soul. But on Shabbos itself is imbued with this godly presence. And so therefore, even something simply that we enjoy, like food, is in an elevated state on Shabbos. And that's why it isn't just a mental construct that we have, but it's something that is woven into the day. And therefore something that we may not even be aware of. There is the holiness on Shabbos. Let's take a look at text number 5. For even a complete ignoramus or peasant is suffused with the light of holiness of Shabbos and holidays. Any violation blemishes the holiness that suffuses their soul, just as it would the holiness of the soul of the tzaddik. So in other words, that's why it says that on Shabbos, even a simple person doesn't lie on Shabbos, because you have something within you that says there's something significant about this day. So it's not just a day to rest, because I worked so hard in the week. Now let me get my rest. Now let me get my vacation. No, Shabbos has that energy, the day of rest, which is infused in this day. And so it's not that we are making a day, but we're stepping into a higher reality where every bite, every song, every moment that we have in this day is already a godly moment. And so now we're going to take a map of the spiritual resources that we have. And that is that God gave us these moments where are moments of time that we could connect to the specialty of that time. An example, a parable of this is man is walking with the son in the desert and he's thirsty. And he said, instead of me just giving you a bottle of water, I'm going to dig a well, and then that well will always be able to provide for you. And so it's true in time, that we have spiritual moments in time. God gave us these moments, and each one is to reflect on what is taking place in that moment. So we talked about Passover, for example, which is a time to focus on the idea of freedom, and the idea of humility, which is the matzah, humility, and the idea of the God passing over, Pesach, associated with that day. You have Shavuot. Shavuot is a day when we focus on giving of the Torah and our recommitment to the Torah on that day. You have the holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot, which we go outside, we're surrounded by the sukkah, representing God's protection in the desert, and then we focus on God's protection that He has, and that's constantly there for us in all times, but specifically on the holiday of Sukkot. And Sukkot is very much associated with the two holidays that come before, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Let's take a look at text 6. Each festival marks, page 108, each festival marks a point in our journey through time at which a heavenly Father supplied us with the resources that nurture our spiritual lives. On Passover, we're granted the gift of freedom. On Shavuot, God gave us the Torah, our charter as his kingdom of priests and a holy people. Rosh Hashanah, the day in which God first became king. On Yom Kippur, God granted the gift of teshuvah, repentance, the capacity to rectify and transform the deficient past. Hanukkah marks the salvation of the Jewish soul, the triumph of light, and the purity of darkness and adulteration, the miracle of Purim, the salvation of the Jewish body. And so with all the festivals, the special dates and periods in our calendar. So, these are not just one-time gifts from above that happen, but freedom, wisdom, commitment, joy, illumination. These are things that we're constantly experiencing in life. But as we're going through life, we have this sort of map, this annual map that takes us into each destination, focusing on that particular aspect of the blessing associated with that day. That's why when it comes each holiday, we make a blessing Shehecheyanu, because it's something that we're appreciative that we've reached this day, Shehecheyanu, V'kiyamanu v'kiyanu zman hazeh, that God had renewed us to come to this day, to come to this time. And so we're commemorating the opportunity, the moment, which is connected to this day. You know what? I was shopping on Friday, share the story on Shabbos. And I was with my Devora, Debbie, got her something in Dollar Tree. And she was very excited. And as I was checking out, there's two women behind me that said, Shabbat Shalom. I said, okay, you're Jewish. So inside, as we're walking out, I said, I'm from Chabad up the road. Maybe I could share with you some of the upcoming Hanukkah events. They said, we're going to a Hanukkah event tomorrow. I said, what? So there's a tree lighting tomorrow. They said, what? That's not really Hanukkah. No, it's a true story. And I said, that's not a Jewish holiday. They said, well, they're going to be lighting the menorah too. I think they were serious, unless they were just playing. But I think they said that they're lighting the menorah too. And I said, well, you probably want to go back on December 14th when they're going to be lighting the menorah. Thank you. So, but the unfortunate aspect of it is that some people think that the reason that we are celebrating Hanukkah is because there's another holiday and we just wanted to offset that. The truth is that Hanukkah actually came historically way before the other one did. But Hanukkah itself has very deep-rooted meaning to it. So let's take a look at exercise 4.2. Just some of the aspects of Hanukkah, the meaning, the practice, the energy that's associated with this day. And these are lessons that we take, that we want to infuse in our life, but we specifically are bringing them to light, pun intended, on the holiday of Hanukkah. So, like one lesson, always go up. Each night of Hanukkah, we add a new candle, building light and never remaining the same. Application to life, Jewish life too, must grow. Stagnation is not an option for a living soul. Self-sacrifice. The Maccabees fought against the possible odds, risking everything for what they believed in. Do your best. The Maccabees could have settled for impure oil, but they insisted on doing the mitzvah the most beautiful, uncompromised way. The last jug of oil, one small sealed jug, untouched, undefiled, held the key to the miracle. Lighting up darkness. Hanukkah candles are lit specifically after nightfall. The mitzvah isn't to light in the broad daylight, but to bring light where it's cold and dark. In outdoor Judaism, the Hanukkah lights are meant to shine outwards into the street. So these are some things that we're only able to get from Hanukkah because, Passover we're doing at home. We're not going and lighting a menorah out there in the street, but specifically menorah is supposed to be lit outside. Even, the menorah that we light at home, proper ways to do it outside. For example, anybody been in other words, I'm not only talking about electric menorahs, the actual menorahs. Anybody been to Jerusalem, you know that where they actually light the menorah is outside next to their house. We don't do it here today because of technical reasons. So we just light it either closest to the door or by the window. But the idea is that you're bringing light to the outside. That is a lesson that's inherently connected to Hanukkah. So, the idea of the pure jug of oil, etc. These are things that are inherently connected to that day. And now we try to infuse not only the day, but our lives with this that's being taught about Hanukkah. You could also have a moment that you could write your own reflection. But this is what we learn from, this is one example. We're not going through all the holidays. This is one example. Yes.
If you have a menorah in the window, are you lighting it as seen outside or inside?
So, yeah, that's a good question. So you light it the way it works from you inside. It is preferred, the way we do it is we light it in a doorway within the house. So you could light it with the doorway next to a doorway within the house, and then by the window, I would put like an electric menorah by the window. So although some people do light it by the window, you write, forget right to left. You light the new candle first, okay? Make it simple. The newest candle first. When you put it in the old candle first, you light it the new candle first. Okay. For those who come here on Shabbos and those that are here a little bit before 11 o'clock, usually around 10:30, you know that every Shabbos I get up and I say this is a very special Shabbos. And the truth is, where did I learn to say that from? I learned it from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, because he would always start, not necessarily in that way, but more or less would find the specialty of the Shabbos. Anytime we talk about a Shabbos, it will be a specialty of that Shabbos, as if that Shabbos is the most special day. And that is the most special Shabbos. And the fact that maybe there is another Shabbos that's more special right now, this is the most special Shabbos. There was a man that one time was in prison. This is a true story. He was in prison. This was probably in the around 1500s, and he sent a question as to when if he's given one day that he'll have off to take and to do whatever he wants on that day. What day should that be? And what would you think? Which day should it be? Any day. So the rabbi said it should be the first possible day that you have. So as long as you have a possible day to do something, you should pick that day. So every day is the most special day, as we'll see. But especially when it comes to Shabbos, seeing the specialty of the Shabbos, which brings blessing to the entire week. We're gonna watch a video which has a little bit about the Rebbe talking on this point, on this idea.
We need to find out.
Every moment, God energizes every feature of existence into being. Time too is creation. Each of its segments is created with a unique divine energy and purpose. How can we identify the speciality of any given moment? The Rebbe often explained it like this: children's rallies. God is our commander in chief. We are his soldiers, and our mission could break darkness, holiness, and kindness. Besides the overall mission, There's also the order of the day. The consideration makes notice a message from purpose. It's when you start paying attention, you notice that there are different layers of what a given moment is about. Okay? Week, month, special dates. All working together to define this moment is asking for us. Day describes each of the 6 days of creation, followed by Shabbat. And those 7 things are repeated each week. Like Wednesday, for example. In the fact to months and war, what podemos sofrer na direita, a schaffen, es harmonia hat to see, das harmonia content verwenden. This day's energy, also to this creating the same light. We each are right. Fire, not miraculous. When it was the holiday of Passover, for example, the number 2 fell flat. Well, special dates. Jewish calendar has special days. They are historical or evolved by custom. It reveals something profound. Time and which he is into. Existence, time stealing randomly. Each day comes with its own built-in message and opportunity. Not just about watching the clock, it's about asking, what does this moment want from me? Sometimes it's to help someone. Sometimes it's to learn something. Sometimes it's to slow down. Each day is what its own assignment. It's a different kind of telling time. This thing, oh, today, it was
Okay, so who wanted to know the point? Now you know the point?
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you a question. So if we was born on different days of the week that have different energies, is that something that like we're associated with? Like, let's say you're born on Shabbat and that has certain.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. So let's take a look at some of these days. We can't go through all this in detail, but it is here for you to read through to appreciate the aspects of it. So let's look through this just a little bit. Page 110 in your book. So you have Sunday is connected with the attribute of chesed, kindness, love. That's why perhaps Sunday is always a nice day to friends to get together. It's a day that you always feel friendship, enjoyment. Monday, Gevura, strength. This is about, setting boundaries, getting to work, getting things done. That's Monday. We all love Mondays, right? Then Tuesdays to Ferris, which is sort of harmonizing the two, bringing the two together, realizing that you got to calm down a little in our work, and we also have to, put that proper balance. And each day has Tiferet beauty and harmony. And on Tuesday, Wednesday, Netzach, perseverance. You're getting over. That's why they call Wednesday Hump Day. Right? You got to get over it. We can get through this. Let's work. Let's get it done. Thursday, Hod, splendor, sort of just appreciating that we're almost getting through the week. Yesod, foundation, connection, relationships, Friday, and then Shabbos, withdrawal from creative activity, focusing on God and accept His sovereignty. We have the moon, waxing and waning. The beginning is when it's very small, then it becomes bigger. The full moon representing the peak of spiritual achievements, then it wanes, it becomes small again, and then when it's no longer visible, then we know we have to go through that moment of renewal again. That's the idea of the moon. Turn the page to the months. So Nisan is the month of redemption. Both are for Egyptian exile and the future from all exiles is associated with Nisan. The Nun, as we saw in the video, represents Nes, which means miracle. ER stands for Ani Hashem Rofecha, I am God, your healer. Sivan is a month of unity, bringing heaven and earth together, which is associated with the Torah, bringing heaven and earth together. Tammuz of Elul, Tishrei. We have the next one beginning with the high holidays. Tishrei is a month of acceptance, of prayer. It's also the seventh month. It's Shiva, which also is associated with the word muspa, which means it is satiated. It's filled because there's so many holidays in the month of Tishrei. It's the filled month. That's why it's called that's why the Torah refers to it as the seventh month. A Cheshvan is also referred to as Mar Cheshvan, the bitter Cheshvan or the drop of Cheshvan, referring to the time of rain. Kislev, which is the month that we're now in, month of Hanukkah, festival of lights. The 19th of Kislev, which we celebrate the revelation and deepest secrets of Torah. So each of the month has its specialty associated with that month. Then we have 54 portions in the Torah, Parshiyot of the Torah. Bereshit, Noach, Lech Lecha. I don't have time to go through all these. We'll just look at the one parsha that we're at right now. And that is the portion of Vayishlach, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 8, Jacob's encounter with Esau, the rape of Dinah, and the massacre of Shechem. Jacob is given the name Israel and the progeny of Esau. Then you have with each one, it's broken up into 5 sections: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and there are certain portions which have to be read before certain holidays. So it's broken up in a way that sometimes there will be a double parsha in order that certain portions will be read before certain holidays. So, for example, the portion by Numbers, where it says Numbers, the portion of Bamidbar is always going to be read the Shabbos before the holiday of Shavuot. Bamidbar is about the census taken of the people of Israel in the Sinai desert. So that itself has a very deep connection with the giving of the Torah and the connection of the Jewish people with the giving of the Torah. The portion of Devarim is always going to be read during the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, before the 9th of Av. But Chanan is always going to be read the Shabbos after the 9th of Av. So it's set up in this way. Each Shabbos is going to be in its specific time. Now we want to get to the final point, and that is personal time. And that is each one of us have personal, special moments in our life that we celebrate in a personal sense. For some of us, that may be our wedding day. So we have an anniversary. The wedding day is not just the day that we happen to have gotten married. We're told that on a wedding, the chassan and kala, the bride and groom, all their sins are forgiven. So it's like a personal Yom Kippur. As a matter of fact, it's customary to recite the Al Chait prayer that we say on Yom Kippur. It's customary to say that on the day of a wedding. The confession prayer that we say on Yom Kippur, say it on the day of a wedding. Then of course, and that's why some people have the custom that they'll give a kala, a bride, they'll give her some names to think about under the chuppah, because it's a special time of blessing for that particular individual. Prayers are powerful, and the blessings that carry on weight in that time. But perhaps the most consequential personal time is your birthday. And celebrating a birthday reaffirms your value in life, and each year that energy is renewed. So when we talk about the day that you're born, it's not only that I happen to have been born that day, but there's something special that I have associated with that day. Why that day? It isn't just random, but it's something that's associated with your traits, with your strengths, and your mission with that day. And the Talmud says there's a certain battle where they placed the soldiers who were celebrating their birthdays in the front lines, because they said on your birthday you have a special mazel, you have a special luck associated with that day, and so they felt that it's a better chance to win with the ones that had birthdays. But even on a psychological level, research confirms that tradition of the birthday, of celebrating the birthday, is something that shows you that your life has value, that your life has meaning on this day. And it reminds you the importance of who you are. It boosts your self-esteem, and it re-energizes the purpose of the life that you live. Text number 7, the joy and the offerings of praise and thanks to God on the birthday of every individual Jew is not only a connection in the original event of their birth, which is commemorated on that day, but also in connection to the birth that takes place on the very day itself, when their vitality is once again drawn down, a new flow of life force for the entire year ahead. So marking your birthday with a meaningful celebration is not just merely a nice tradition, but it's a way to channel these unique spiritual energies of that day. And so that's why we have a number of birthday customs. It's not just to make the passage of time go by in a fun way, but to make it meaningful. And that's why celebrating birthdays, especially for adults, is a widespread custom. Not just because I want to get gifts. You know, Debbie tells me every time there's a birthday party for a kid, she says it's my birthday. Every time it's her birthday. Mm-hmm. But and this is important, especially when one is getting older. Because many times people say, I don't want to celebrate my birthday. It just means I'm getting a year older. Why do I need that? No, on the contrary. A birthday means that I've lived another year and I'm able to bring more vitality to the year ahead. I'm able to focus on the meaning and the purpose of my life. And I'm able to infuse that with the birthday that I have. I'm able to infuse that energy into this moment that is connected to me. And so when we have a birthday, we don't just say, it's another year, who cares? No, it means that God gave you another year to fulfill your mission, your purpose in this world. And so let's just take a look at some of the birthday customs. Some of you have this on your paper, but it's also in your book, figure 4.1. To arrange a call to the Torah in the synagogue, give extra charity on this day. If your birthday is on Shabbos, do it the preceding day. Pray with increased concentration and read from the book of Psalms. Read and study the chapter of Psalms that corresponds with the years of your life. Some people don't know this, but there's a custom to recite your chapter of Psalms. So let's say you're 52, you'll recite chapter 53 because you're actually in your 53rd year, right? When you're every day, every day, I recite the chapters of all my children as well. You do 56. In other words, when you're 55 years old, it means that you've completed 55 years, but you're actually in your 56th year, right? Because when you're zero, you're actually in your first year. So a 0-year-old is saying chapter 1. When you reach an age, it means you've actually completed that year.
You said it's related to.
What? Shh.
Uh,
Oh, it's connected to the parsha as well. I'm not sure. So it will be the Shabbos before your birthday. Is that what you're asking?
No. To the degree you're in good.
No. I'm sorry. Let me clarify. A chapter of Tehillim, a chapter of Psalms. Yes, I'm sorry. A chapter of Psalms according to your birthday. Then, we should study Torah text, special Torah text, mystical portion of the Torah. We should get together with friends. The idea of a birthday party is not just something that's a fun way to get together, but there's actually an aspect of what we call farbrengen, gathering together with friends to have a positive influence on another person, because someone that has a birthday has the ability to have some sort of influence, and you should try to inspire others on that day. So getting together as a party shouldn't just be seen as a way, let's celebrate and give me gifts. On the contrary, give a good message, give an inspiring message connected with the day. Set aside time for private contemplation and stock taking of the previous year, resolving to correct any wrongdoings and to find ways to improve yourself. So we should take a few moments of reflection. The Lubavitcher Rebbe who very much encouraged this idea of birthdays. There was one year when he got a call from a president on his birthday. I believe it was President Reagan, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong. It may have been Carter. And he said, and he got a call to 770 to wish him a happy birthday. And the Rebbe said, "I'm sorry, but I don't have time on my birthday. I have too much stuff going on." It's a true story. To undertake a new mitzvah or positive practice, on your birthday, get together with family and friends to joyously celebrate and express your gratitude to God. By the way, with that being said, what I just said before, he also brought about an idea called a education day, which is every year on his birthday. He actually instituted not a law, but not a decree. What do they call it? Proclamation come out for Education Day. Every single president did it every single year on the Rebbe's birthday. So celebrating your birthday according with the Jewish calendar connects to your personal rhythm and time, and observing the holiday Shabbos Torah portion of the week connects to a broader rhythm in the Jewish calendar. And when we align ourselves with these rhythms, it becomes richer in meaning, and we're connecting to the order of the day. And that awareness fills us with urgency and energy associated with that day. And so it's not just a backdrop of life, but it's taking that time and infusing that moment in time. So when we talk about the Kabbalah of Meaning is not just about finding meaning in the aspects of life, but as well finding it in the time in life. I'm going to show a video and then I'll take questions afterwards.
Lesson 4. Meaning in the rhythms of time. 1. Judaism teaches that each day carries its own spiritual energy, and by aligning with the rhythms of time, even routine actions are infused with new vitality. 2. The sacredness of Jewish holidays and special occasions is not one object. The time itself is inherently holy. This is an objective reality. The holiness of these days is not something we create, but something we enter. 3. Jewish holidays are opportunities to access spiritual wells revealed through history. Each holiday brings its own divine energy. Tap into through the mitzvot, prayers, and rituals that define the day. 4. Beyond holidays and special occasions, every day of the week and date on the calendar also carries its own spiritual significance. 5. Birthday is an annual return of the spiritual force that brought you into existence. The Rebbe encouraged Jews to embrace their birthdays and outlined a set of meaningful practices for that day.
Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next week. Let me.